I'd like to call this meeting of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee to order. If you could all please rise for the flag. God bless you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. A reminder, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded and can be accessed on Facebook. Right, so getting into our regular business, we do have minutes to approve, and I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 22nd, 2025 as written.
So moved.
Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Any questions or comments about those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, and I say yes. So that is unanimous. Moving on, I would also accept a motion to accept the bills and payroll warrants as presented.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Any questions or comments on those bills and payroll? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, and I say yes, so that is unanimous. It is beyond the end of the school year for our seniors as they graduated last week. So our next student representative will be present at meetings, likely in the fall. Public input this evening. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak? If you could introduce yourself, with your name and your place of residence.
My name is David Brown Paul. I live in Phillipston, 55 Williamsville Road. And I was concerned about the lack of a band at our Memorial Day exercise. It's hard for me to explain, but the Memorial Day exercise in Phillipston is a big deal. It's the one holiday in the year that the community gets together. And so not having a band really resonated with me. And then I wanted to find out why. So I went to see Colby, Principal Young, and he explained that there is now a concert band and no marching band. But that there is a stipend for the marching band component to that musical experience for the kids. So no crying over spilled milk, as my mother used to say. So this Memorial Day is past. Now I'm looking ahead at next year. Okay, you have a concert band. Can that band, is my question, can that band come to Phillipston we always had it the Sunday before Memorial Day because Templeton always got the band on Memorial Day. So we always had ours on the Sunday. Can that band come to the center of Phillipston on Sunday? And I don't know, do you want them to sit and play the national anthem? That's my one question, possibility. The other is, we'd really like to have some great trumpeter play taps in the cemetery. We played it on a DVD today and it just doesn't cut it, okay? And perhaps if you don't want to march, could we have a couple drummers that maybe could do cadence as the group walks? It's only 800 feet from the center of Phillipston to the cemetery and 800 feet back. So those were some questions that I have. Is it possible? Am I asking too much? If transportation is a problem, send me the bill. I'll pay it, okay? But it's important for the town of Phillipston to have this component because it's the one part of Narragansett that the old people in town, of which I happen to be one, see their tax dollars in fruition. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, so that's my first issue. The second was when I came over on Memorial Day to see if in fact did Templeton get the band? No, they didn't. But I noticed that the flagpole in front of the senior high was bare. Memorial Day. Flag should be flying. And you have a flagpole. In fact, the ropes on that flagpole. 5 years ago, I spent out of my $100 out of my pocket, and I redid the lines on that. Nobody asked me to do it, but I noticed that the ropes were wearing out, so I changed them one weekend and didn't say anything to anybody, I just did it. But they were bare. Then I looked over and I said, well, middle school's pole, there's a flag flying, great. Came back at night. The flag is not illuminated. The flag code is not mandatory. It uses words like should, not must. But if you choose to fly the flag after sunset, then it is, the words should be properly illuminated. That means a dedicated light to the flag. You have a light here on this wall, back on the outside of this wall, and one outside the, used to be the old art wing there, that building, that lights the entrances to the school. It would take very little money to buy a two-headed fixture. Continue to illuminate your doorways, but at the same time, then you could illuminate the poles. In the case of the senior high, then they could fly the flag 24/7 and didn't have to worry about Memorial Day and kept someone coming in and doing the flag. You must say to yourself, geez, doesn't this guy have anything else to do? And but flags are a thing with me, okay? And after I count my pills in the morning, my day is pretty much open, you know, as to what I can do. So and flags are my thing, okay? Some people collect you know, whatever, books or porcelain or whatever. I collect flags, okay? And then if you come up to 55 Williamsville Road, you see my flagpole is illuminated. And also each day you'll see a foreign flag flying underneath the American flag. And I change it every day in the hope that some kid up the road will say, what that flag is? It's never happened in 21 years I've been here. But I keep trying. I keep changing that flag every day. Today is New Zealand, by the way. Okay, okay, so there it is. That's all I have to say. I don't want to make it difficult, but I think those two lights could be quickly done and not a big expense. And then you could decide, you know, whether or not you want to have that flag up there 24/7. Again, the code is not, you're not going to get arrested for not illuminating the flag, but they do suggest that when you saluted the flag today, I miss that. You know, we don't do that in the school anymore, do we? I don't recall doing it as a sub anyway. I don't recall doing this. But you won't believe it.
Do the pledge.
You do? I started school in 1940. Yeah. I was 5, first grade, and we saluted the flag this way. You will not believe that, perhaps, but it's called the Bellamy salute. And then the Germans came and the Japanese, and they kind of ruined that. So now we do this. Okay, so anyway, that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'm trying to answer them.
I had a feeling you were pre-war, so.
Thank you so much for coming in today. And honestly, this is exactly how we want folks from the public to engage with us when they see something that concerns them or that they have eyes on. And so luckily, we did get a heads up in time to make sure that there was an agenda item. But out of respect for your time, is anyone opposed to moving the Memorial Day agenda item up so that Dr. Cassavant can speak to this item specifically? All right, wonderful. So we'll move up the Memorial Day agenda item.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. You know, calamity events. First, you know, the only explanation we have is that there was no school on Monday, of course, and they do not keep the flag flying 24/7, or pardon me, 24 hours at the high school because it's one of the duties of our life skills classroom. So they pick it up and put it down, and so it just it got past us in terms of it should be flying, and of course it should be flying. The dedicated lights, as a flag man myself, a long time ago, in charge of all of that, yes, exactly. You know, I didn't have a problem necessarily. It was illuminated enough in most occasions, but we should have a dedicated light to both flagpoles, and that would be a fairly simple thing to do without a doubt. The other pieces, quite frankly, is that we've got great kids, so I don't expect that anyone would say no to the just at the very the basic request of drummers, trumpet. Whether there's going to be a marching band or not, I don't know. And so there's the marching band answer. Someone is going to have to volunteer in order to do the marching. Trust me, we have a lot of requests for the marching band. People have wanted that for a lot of occasions. We're trying. We just have not had any takers for the past, probably 4 years. And pre-COVID, so more than that at this point in time. So we'll see. In terms of the band itself, again, we'll talk to Mr. Sal, is our music teacher. Our band teacher's done a fantastic job at the high school. He was in the middle school, he moved into the high school. Was the middle, moved to the high school. Fantastic job. And what I'll say to you is that we will, of course, push pretty hard for those type of things to happen. I would be lying to say that if I were to say here, go, yes, it will definitely happen. I'll need to see whether or not the kids will, in fact, I don't want to say want to do it. They should want to do it, but will they do it? And so, again, we have good kids. I think if presented the appropriate way, I think that they would probably love the opportunity, quite frankly. They did a great job at the Memorial Day program for the high school, middle school, high school in the gym. They did an outstanding job at graduation. And so they would I'm sure, like to perform more and would like to do bigger and better things. So, we're on it. I know Mr. Young has already had a conversation with you, and as soon as we can get to those items, meaning the items with the students, the other items we will take care of. And we'll be doing that as soon as July 1 comes. Let's see, we've removed F1s.
There was one other thing I mentioned, that the possibility if the concert band was willing to come on Memorial Day, we could provide seats if they want to sit and perform but for them to perform the national anthem as we're raising the flag, I mean, that really is the frosting on the cake, okay, so to speak.
agree.
No.
Certainly, and the other thing I think we can do is, we're trying to make sure we have regular chairs meetings on the calendar for FY 26, so this coming school year. And we could certainly proactively bring up, what are some ways that we can positively showcase our partnership, of which I would certainly be happy to say Memorial Day could be one of them, and what opportunities do we have to, potentially engage the school or students? Because I think it's also important for us to know, what are the programs that the towns are running and where might there be other opportunities for us to engage? So I'm so glad that you came tonight and brought up this important topic. I know that, we take, honoring our veterans and our flags very seriously. We say, the school says that pledge every time we say that pledge. And so we just really appreciate the way that you engaged with us and, are holding us accountable, but also very understanding of, the realities of running a school and students.
Yes, and the last time I spoke to a group from Narragansett was asked me to speak to the senior banquet about 5 years ago. And they introduced me, unfortunately, mentioning my senior year at Watertown High School in 1952. And they said, we'll now hear from 3 Ds, 2 Cs, and a B. That's a true story.
I'm not coming behind this.
If I may, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, but Keith Parker, our wonderful facilities director, he sent me a text, and the middle school flag is now lit.
Oh, excellent.
So give it away.
Fast work for me. Look at, ask and you shall receive.
Don't get used to that.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We welcome you to stay or to go as you wish.
I hate, I'm expecting a phone call. My brother is passing in California and I'm not, the hospital's got to call me when he finally leaves us, earth. So I really want to go because I don't want to interrupt,
My
But,
serious
well, he's
condolences.
83 and he's my kid brother, so. what can I
Sorry to
say?
hear that.
But thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for being here. So we're just bringing that. NDAA is understandably not here tonight as they wrap up the end of the year. And so we're moving into our budget updates, and I know Anne Marie was unable to be here this evening, and so Dr. C, I will hand it over to you for any updates she had as it relates to FY 25 or FY 26.
Well, we're in the final minutes of FY 25 in terms of the bank aid. I think that Anne Marie, last time I was here, I was not here the last meeting, but we're going to make it by the hair of our chin in terms of FY 25. And so that is definitely still the case. In terms of FY 26 budget, I can say that, well, we are going out, address this later in the report, in my report. We're received already, I think, 2 resignations, so we'll start seeing kind of the ebb and flow of teaching staff, educational staff, period. So we'll see how that all pans out, but otherwise, we're happy to see FY 25 close, quite frankly, and excited to see FY 26. Thank you. So.
Business managers report, I know that Anne Marie had requested that we discuss the refund from Minuteman Neshoba Health Group, and I believe she tasked you with that as well.
Just for the record, I think it's a poor excuse not to be here just because your daughter's being born. Work. That's different. Thank you for asking. So in FY 24, the district was assessed 420,000 thereabouts, based on our member percentage of the group. So Minuteman Neshoba, if you remember or you don't know, used to be our health, our medical care, healthcare provider, carrier group to cover any. So what happens is that they held back monies because they have to worry about what's called run-out claims. Just because it ended, it doesn't mean that, insurances aren't still being applied to whatever bill, whatever, service that was being provided. So that happened for about 18 months. So we really just got monthly reports, they'd have a meeting every month, they're like, we're still good, we're closed, but, and they would give an update basically on each district that was at that point, or at some point, attached to them and show health. So in the end, though, if those funds were not needed to cover the district's run-out claims, then they would be returned to the district. Now, again, this was 18, 19 months ago that it all started. We had no expectation, no idea. They didn't have an idea in terms of if there would be any monies available, that would be returned, quote unquote, to the district. Well, it finally went through its 18-month runout claim period, and the district received a refund of $472,562.61 to be exact. It's based on the same number and percentage of the group. So basically, it was all this money sitting in there, and then after everybody's claims were, done, and when they came in, then they dispersed the money based on the percentage. So that was our share in regards to those monies, and this made up these are the member premiums paid, assessed along FY 24, and that were not needed once the run-on claims were realized. I think I just went through that. So here we were sitting on, well, at that time, we did not receive the check, and we knew that we would not receive those monies for a bit, even though they said, hey, you're going to receive these funds. It was probably about a month or so, and then we finally received the check. In that time, we called our auditors and said, how do we classify these funds? What do we do with these monies? We were still in obviously in FY 25, but it's just not as simple as just adding that. You can't add to chapter 7, you can't add to your budget without, obviously going through quite a bit. And we knew that the monies wouldn't come to us probably in time to really help us with the FY, well, it will ultimately help us, but in FY 25 budget process, right, for FY 26, we knew that it wouldn't come in time to help factor that at all. So what they're saying, what they say to do is we're going to classify these funds as miscellaneous income and it will fall to E&D, which we've already done the mechanical piece of that. And meaning that we've said it's miscellaneous income and that's where it'll stay until the end of FY 25, which all unexpended funds, as you know, fall into excess and deficiency or E&D. But once E&D is certified in the fall, because that is really the trigger that is needed in terms of what do you do with these funds, the school committee then can vote to use them. Okay. Our suggestion is to use those funds to help cover the FY 27 anticipated shortfall, whatever it may be, quite frankly. So again, this was one of those unknowns because we knew how much money total was in this run out. I'll call it account, but no one knew exactly what was going to be left. Well, that was our share. So that is in fact what will take place in the fall. And then of course, we will be sitting on whatever other funds will fall to E&D as well. So I don't know we don't know what the total amount will be until they actually certify it. One of the concerns is that really you are penalized if you're anything over 5% in E&D. Technically, they could reduce your chapter 70 by that amount because you're not supposed to keep that much in excess and deficiency. It's not you're supposed to spend the money that you get, so to speak. So the state doesn't like it when you're keeping more than that. That won't be an issue because as soon as it's certified, we'll allocate whatever we're going to allocate towards FY 27. So I just want to pause on that just to see if there are any questions on this topic.
And just to be clear, there's no need to vote tonight.
No.
This is just informational this evening. No votes are necessary until, we start actually moving these. But to that end, any questions? All right. So we'll move on to technology leases.
Okay, so technology leases, before this will move about. Excuse me. Before you, I'm sure, and I know that's in your packet, that you have a technology lease needs to be approved. This buys 45 iPads for use at Templeton Elementary School. And as you know, we roll over leases fairly regularly. It's a good money saver, so to speak. So bless you. And then the other lease that we're talking about is this buys is also for Chromebooks for 340. So there's an Apple lease and then there's a Dell lease. One for iPads and one for Chromebooks.
So we'll get a motion on table. I would entertain a motion to approve the technology leases as presented.
So
Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Opening up the floor for any questions or comments about those.
This was obviously this is a budgetary item we've already previously fought for, correct? Just so everybody understands this.
we're all good. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Doing that now, so that way. Basically buying that for companies.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so that is unanimous. Okay. So next we have reinstatement of extracurricular fees for FY 26. So just as a reminder for folks, that's the rates for sports activities with a family cap. I'll hand it over to Dr. C because he did collect some information or had some help in collecting information, but this is something we anticipated and knew we needed to bring back as we worked to improve the FY 26 budget. Because unfortunately, while we were able to cover it for FY 25, FY 26 did not allow for that. So I'll let you run through some of the numbers.
So among the myriad of cuts or reductions that we made in order to make the numbers work for FY 26, a lot of the athletic revolving, transportation, et cetera, it was a lot of things with, getting to the number that we needed to get to. So one of the caveats that was presented during the budget meetings earlier this spring was that just given the fact that we would not have the monies that we were, I say anticipating, or we've had previous, that we would have to then reinstate, pardon me, athletic fees in order to help, balance or negate some of the costs that are, that are obviously associated with athletics. So in any event, this is the information I presented. I believe this information a couple of years ago. Brad, called around, not much has changed. So this information, if you remember it from the last time, will look, if not exact, but very close to what you reviewed last time in terms of what other districts do for sports fees.
So what I'll do is I'll again get a motion on the table and we'll open up the floor for questions or comments. I would entertain a motion to reinstate extracurricular fees for FY 26 at a rate of $150 per sport or activity, $50 per sport activity for low income households, and $600 family cap per year. Motion by Danielle, second by Hank. Questions or comments about these fees?
Sure.
Sure.
What are we defining as a low income household? Is that already?
Yep, so if you harken back to when I showed you the chapter 70
Right.
foundation enrollment money, there are, I think they were 86 or not even, but students who are identified as low income. So we know who they are.
So the state defines
So, yeah,
that.
there- yes.
We don't measure
Yeah.
that is what I'm saying. So that's already been measured.
It's been
You
measured.
fall in that category that. Fair.
Now, also know that no child has ever been turned away. So just because you didn't make the low income list from what the state, it doesn't mean that, that there are hardships that can be, that aren't real. So there's never been an opportunity where someone is like, well, gee, you didn't make the list. So we know our students very well. No students that has never participated in extracurricular activity. They couldn't afford the this is extracurricular, so I just want to make sure I say that I had sports, because that's generally what people are looking at the most, but it'd be the big items such as the play, marching band, as we talked about, and of course, again, athletics.
Quick comment. I just want to make sure that we put on record that this was not something that we wanted to do as a school committee. We worked very hard last year to remove this barrier for our students to be able to participate without having to worry about the fees, and we did that alongside many of the chairs in the other agencies in the town, and that given the budgetary challenges this year, and some decisions made by the town, we're not able to sustain this. And so I'm hoping that moving forward, that we can continue to foster those relationships with important town committee members so that we can eventually get back to this point, because this is something that all of the kids benefit from. And I know that for many of the people in the town, it was very important that this happened. So definitely not something that we wanted, but it's a reality that we have to do this again.
No, thank you for adding in. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so that is unanimous. Facility use fees.
Henry does work hard. So the fees for custodial services will not cover the cost of their salaries in FY 26. And I think that, again, it's public comment sitting right there, but we gathered the rate schedules from Line Tech, Merchant and Ethel, brought our fees in line with the area. We last updated them in FY 21. So before you have what are the proposed fees. Our building, and I've always said this, I'm always happy with folks use it. I really am. It's always a credit to us, a credit to our facilities groups. It's always nice to show off a little bit, because I think we have a great venue here for a lot of things. We're just going to, it just isn't financially feasible to keep the fees that as they were, and as we point out, these are more in line with what everyone is, charging around us. We were actually pretty low. So.
And I think Anne Marie had additionally asked me to note that our last update was in FY 21, so
Yep.
might be time. All right, I would entertain a motion to increase the rates for facility use fees as presented beginning July 1st, 2025. Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Any questions or comments about that those rates, or does anyone wish me to go through those line item by line item, or is it sufficient that it's attached?
It's official.
Okay,
Are they, the new fees will, I assume, cover the services?
yes.
Exactly. So we were running this deficit. This is
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, and I say yes, so that is unanimous. Okay, so general fund to stabilization account fund transfer.
So we budgeted for this in FY 25, which was stepping. Then the school committee must vote to actually move funds. Stabilization fund was established in the early 2000s, I believe, by Steve Hennon. Was the superintendent at the time, for capital projects only, which we have some coming, right? It's only been funded once with the original deposit of $50,000. So as of April 30th, the balance is $51,968.37. So the transfer, of course, increase that and give us a little bit of a cushion, or at least a place we can go to in terms of if something facilities wise needs to be place fixed, etc.
I would entertain a motion to transfer $25,000 from the general fund to the stabilization account. Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Questions or comments about that particular transfer? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes. End of budget end of year budget transfer.
This is an annual event. Someone asked, I think last year or maybe the year before, was why does Narragansett only transfer funds? And so I'm going to tell you, as a former business manager, someone, this is an annual task, because given what can happen with a $24 million budget, some things are realized, some things are not, some things cost more money, some things don't. So we have to balance prior to July 1. So this is the way we do that. So before you have, I believe, the budget transfers and the reasoning or the purpose in the comments as to why and how.
And so just for clarity, we are removing $236,985 from instruction, as we had 3 open special education positions that could not be filled. Those services had to be filled by contractors. The contractors actually fell under the student services line, and so that $236,985 was added there. The other key move was related to tuition. So the number of schools choice students going out of district ended up being less than the Cherry Street sheet estimate. So that was less $148,950, and that full amount was moved to fixed charges where it covered enrollment and health insurance increases during the open enrollment, which falls after the budget is certified. So I would entertain a motion to accept those budget transfers for FY 25 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Hank, second by Sean. Any questions or comments about those budget transfers?
You can always tell a tight budget. There's a thing you'd like to know. You can always tell how tight a budget is by how few transfers you have.
Yeah.
Because you're spending everything. And so when I see only 2 transfers, I said, oh boy, that was close. So, nice job by Anne Marie, and I know you know that, but even if she was here, I would compliment her. She does a fantastic job managing this money, honestly, and she's one of the very best in this area. Doing.
Seeing no other questions or comments, all in favor?
I-
Opposed? Abstained, and I say yes, so that is unanimous. And I would like to second that thanks to Anne Marie because one of the things we fixed for next year was quite a tight turnaround between our previous school committee meeting in May and this first meeting in June, and she hustled to get all of this in so that we all don't have to have a second meeting in June. So if you see Anne Marie, please give her a big thank you because it means one less meeting for everyone in this room. All right,
All while trying to.
all while trying to prepare for a wedding, yes. And we promised her a nap day. All right, so we're on to the end of cycle summary. Just as a reminder to folks, so I'm gonna run through this and kind of go through what my methodology was, how I took, individual inputs and brought them together into a singular picture. But essentially, this actually has to be submitted to the state, so that's why we have to vote on it, and then what we submit is then officially submitted to the state so that it lives on in perpetuity. And so I will run through, so it's a bit repetitive, so bear with me through the document. It actually asks you to put the same information in multiple places. And it was fun to try to transfer between a Google Doc and this, so just bear with me. So to summarize, the first section here, step 1, is to assess progress towards goals. So that was a professional practice goal, a student learning goal, and a district improvement goal, all of which I'm gonna say that the average responses all were met, not only average, but also majority. And since those are covered in more detail later, I'm going to leave that there and keep moving through. The next was to assess performance on standards. Those were standard 1, instructional leadership, standard 2, management and operations, standard 3, family and community engagement, and standard 4, professional culture. Here, the rating is not a did not meet to exceeded. It is actually unsatisfactory to exemplary. And for all of these, the overall rating once calculated was proficient. Step 3 is to rate the overall summative performance based on step 1 and 2. This particular scale is from unsatisfactory to exemplary, and the overall rating was again proficient. Where I had a comment box for transparency, I tried to include what the ratings were across the folks that participated. We had 5 participants out of 7, which is actually pretty good. So thanks to those who took the time. And so the individual ratings for this were 1 exemplary and 4 proficient. So running through these comments, 3 folks commented here. First commenter said, while there are key areas to address, EL students, special education, staffing stability, consistency and communication across schools, grade levels, and as always, budgetary concerns, this district has committed to growth and improvement, and again, battling the odds with grants, creative problem solving, and a strong student-centered culture. Dr. C has empowered his teams to pursue opportunities that have made our district one of the most desirable in the surrounding area. They are on a great trajectory. Let's keep up the momentum. Commenter 2 said, I would like to thank Dr. Cassavant for his continued efforts to serve our entire district community. His efforts are seen and appreciated. And commenter 3 said, overall, Dr. Cassavant is doing a great job and is without a doubt steering our district in a direction that will not only benefit our current student population, but is also ensuring that populations to come are set up to thrive and succeed here. The development of programs like our ELL courses and the MVP program are showing a true dedication and desire to help students of all paths succeed and grow as individuals and to gain an education that will suit them best. I believe Dr. Cassavant knows that not all students fit the cookie cutter traditional school model, and his time and effort on developing programs like the ones I mentioned above demonstrates that. Okay, moving into the superintendent's performance goals, we're back to student learning goal, professional practice goal, and district improvement goal. As a reminder, all of those were received a met level. And then we get into district improvement goal 1 and district improvement goal 2, both of which also were listed as met, and all of that evidence is available within there. There was no opportunity for further commentary on that. So then in that phase, we then go into standard 1 instructional leadership, for which we were reviewing IB instruction, IC assessment, ID evaluation, IE data informed decision making, and overall, and all of which came in as proficient. Those individual ratings, now have a comment, came in as 1 exemplary and 4 proficient. So commentator 1 said Dr. Cassavant is setting, maintaining, and continuously improving upon the district's high standards of instructional leadership. The district's commitment to building programs that cater to a depth and breadth of student needs is, as the rating says, exemplary. It would be hard to name another district in our area that has access to as many programs and opportunities, including Project Lead the Way, MVP Academy, Early College, AP courses, Thrive program. Additionally, Dr. Cassavant has ensured the school system is not only using multiple modes of assessment, STAR, DIBELS, MCAS, others, but also invested in a central way to view this data, analytic view, to ensure teachers are empowered to address student learning from a data-centric perspective. To maintain this exemplary status, just as a reminder, this is based on what the individual rated. The district needs to focus in on improving outcomes for vulnerable populations, including our EL population, which more than doubled unexpectedly in special education, for which the entire state has struggled to maintain staffing levels with reasonable caseloads. Commentator 2 said Dr. Cassavant has demonstrated a strong commitment to fostering instructional excellence by clearly defining and implementing universal design for learning district-wide. Data-informed decision-making has always and continues to be effectively used to guide the district's instructional practices. Commentator 3 said Dr. Cassavant has done a good job of providing clear, fair, and equitable guidelines for staff and administrators across the district to be reviewed against. Furthermore, the implementation of new data systems like Analytic View has made data from evaluations and student performance far more accessible and easy to use when making decisions for the district, which is why I rated him proficient, as I feel he has met the necessary requirements for this rating. On to standard 2, management and operations. What we were looking at was standard 2C, scheduling and management information systems, and 2E, fiscal systems, both of which came in as a proficient rating for an overall rating of proficient. In this case, all 5 ratings were proficient. So commentator 1 said RE2C, regarding 2C, the district has made strong progress on the standard over the past 2 years under Dr. C's direction. Investing in Analytic View has given teachers and administrators a single view of data for each student, as well as student groups, meaning classrooms, grade levels, etc. Additionally, the move to School Brains for IEPs has centralized/streamlined tool usage. I look forward to a time when the district transitions from observing/learning to demonstrating impact from data/insights collected from Analytic View, as well as to witnessing the outcome investments in Universal Design for Learning, UDL. It is largely due to these future opportunities that I've given a proficient rating. Regarding 2E, Dr. C's budget presentations have been consistently informative, insightful, and educational for our communities. Efforts for increased engagement have been made via chairs meeting and inclusion of town reps on finance and facilities. More frequent chairs meetings and regular communication regarding budget matters and union negotiations will be key to FY25. FY 27 budget planning, not quite enough time. Commentator 2 said, Dr. Casavan continues to put his heart and soul into a transparent budget that aims to meet the needs of today while projecting the needs of tomorrow. He has aimed to develop a comprehensive long-term strategy for district operations with a focus on sustainability and adaptability. This includes both proactive financial planning and ensuring the district is well positioned to meet future demands. Commentator 3 said the scheduling and information systems used across the district in an effort to maximize student learning and education are well developed and well implemented, and it is clear that there is ample time for administrators and staff members to collaborate with one another to better learning. When talking about the budget, Dr. Casavan does an excellent job at communicating the importance and needs for our district, and his effort and dedication is clear by his resiliency against cuts in funding and communication issues with district towns. He does an excellent job with our budget, earning him the rank of proficient. Standard 3, family and community engagement. This was 3A engagement and 3C communication, both of which received a proficient rating for an overall rating of proficient. In this case, individual ratings were a bit more split. There were 2 exemplary, 2 proficient, and 1 needs improvement. Averaged out, that was all proficient. So there were actually 4 commentators here. Commentator 1 said, at a district level, I find there are multiple examples of strong communication and engagement. Examples include urgent or emergency communication, community videos, surveys, and meetings with key town representation. The website continues to be a valuable source of information, continually improved upon with resources like regional agreement information and communications from the individual schools. At a school level, improvements are also observed with a particular nod to the efforts to streamline the student handbook, especially dress code, student expectations, disciplinary actions. That said, there are additional opportunities for Dr. C to improve communication consistency across schools, including the use of School Brains as a communication tool with caregivers within and across grade levels, as well as how weekly communications are distributed. Some schools send an email, give access over the website and app. Others only give access over the website or app. Commentator 2 said, Dr. Casavan has made consistent efforts to build strong relationships with families and community partners, such as Growing Places and the Templeton Senior Center. The compassionate communications with families following emergency incidents has fulfilled the district's community's desire to be informed while maintaining the privacy and dignity of the affected individuals. These conditions are often contradictory to each other and are not easy to meet in balance. This year in particular, I felt that Dr. C's efforts were exemplary. Commentator 3 said, Dr. Casavan excels in the area of family and community engagement. He provides important information in a timely manner using various methods of communication in order to ensure preferred methods of information sharing are considered. Dr. Casavan participates and encourages participation in all chairs meetings that provide time and space for multiple town agencies to partner with each other in order to understand the unique needs of the towns. Commentator 4 said the communication from the district to community members is mainly affected, with some areas needing minor improvements, such as an expansion beyond newsletters and one-way media for the DESE rubric for 3C. However, the minor corrections needed do not hinder the effectiveness or the ability of the district to communicate appropriately, and has the effect of mostly making families in the district feel seen and heard. Standard 4, professional culture. This was 4C, communication, and 4D, continuous learning. Again, proficient ratings with overall rating of proficient. In this case, the individual ratings were 1 exemplary and 4 proficient. Commentator 1 said, as a sitting member on our WEC and LMC labor management committees, I have been a direct witness to how Dr. C engages with staff, creatively solves problems, and communicates, both when we have something to celebrate and when we have something to address. The culture of this district is a true statement to the supportive, encouraging, and accountable work environment that Dr. C works to cultivate. The staff want to be here. They engage productively. They are committed to our districts and are centering our students at all times. The culture extends to our students and further to our community via the community videos and other efforts to build a learning and growth culture that prioritizes belonging for all students, families, and staff. Commentator 2 said Dr. Casavan leads with integrity, respect, and transparency. His interactions with staff, parents, and the community are consistently professional. He sets the district up for success by ensuring that it operates in a collaborative and positive environment. And commentator 3 says communication between the district and its staff members is certainly efficient and does have a positive effect, allowing staff members to use feedback and evaluations to improve their students' learning. And thank you very much for listening to me talk. Slash read. Before we vote, I would open it up to school committee or to you, Dr. C, if anyone has any questions, comments about anything that I just went. All right. Seeing no questions or comments, I would entertain I'm on the wrong one. I'd entertain a motion to accept the end of cycle summative assessment as presented. Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Last chance for any questions or comments.
Well, Madam Chair.
all right.
Sorry.
Oh, he doesn't want to speak.
No, I do. I'm sorry. I was just waiting for the vote, waiting for the chance to do that. So first, I want to thank everyone, for the effort into this. I think that there's nothing more, I think, laborious than the superintendent's evaluation, honestly. As I'm reading all these wonderful things that I allegedly or supposedly had done, I think I wrote in my letter, standing on the shoulders of giants. Many of these things have really come to the forward or to fruition. The wonderful folks that I have working with me. And well, she's not here tonight, but certainly two of them are sitting right to my right. Molly Superchi, who really does a fantastic job marshaling every one of these initiatives and then making it sustainable, which is hard to do in a financial troubling district at times. One of the things that I think that we're talking about, I want to just get on the format for a sec, is that this has come a long way. As someone who's been here 9 years, the evaluations have looked very different over the years. I think that this allows us to make it a little bit more streamlined. And we are open. I'm open. We're open to any improvements that someone might want to make, because I'm not doing evaluations. We don't know how easy or how user friendly it is, quite frankly, especially with all the evidence that we're just literally pouring into these documents, which are sometimes 20 or 30 different attachments or what have you. The one thing as I see here, and to be very candid, in my waning years, one of the things that I want to make sure that we do a better job is that if there's a needs improvement, I need to know. And here's why. I think I said last year very candidly, I'm very appreciative of the work and the thoughts that people, we work very hard here. We pour a lot into this. This isn't an ego thing at all. Whether or not someone rates me exemplary, needs improvement. We can battle that all day, but it's a missed opportunity. So if there was a need for improvement somewhere, I should have been told. Or if nothing else, there should have been a comment here, because needs improvement. If someone wants me to learn from this, then I need to be told. I have 8 bosses. My 8 bosses should not have a problem with telling me that something needs to improve. I said this last year. I said it the year before. And I've said it before. If we're going to get better, then we're going to have to be okay with that uncomfortable conversation. We have a board chair and we have a vice chair. So if someone doesn't feel that, and I don't know why that would be, but someone should be going to the board chair, because then we missed an opportunity. We could have been, because somewhere along, now this is a 2-year process. This is over 2 years, right? This is a 2-year, this is the end. What could have been better? That's a missed opportunity. Did kids get negatively affected, staff, etc.? I would have appreciated to know that. So in any event, I want to say that out loud because I think it's important. Am I worried about the needs improvement? You heard my whole spiel last year about evaluations, right? They are important, but only if the feedback loop is completed or at least initiated. And so that's my only, not a critique, but certainly something that you're going to be, hopefully you're all here for many, many, many years. I will not. You're going to be supervising a new superintendent someday. You're going to need to feel comfortable providing appropriate feedback when it's, when it's applicable. And I think that's my charge, is to prepare this place, leave it better than you took it, right? Took it over. So again, I don't want to seem ungrateful. I'm very grateful for these comments. I really am. But I do want to get to a place where when folks have some, something to add, I would really like to know that.
So two things, I 100% agree with that statement, that if anyone is saying that there is an area where you, their voice needs to be
Sure.
heard. The second thing is just me playing devil's advocate. We have 2 new members. It could have been someone who has not had the opportunity. So we don't know. We don't know what it was,
Oh.
but clearly we have addressed it in this room in this moment, so.
I would add though, this is a public document. This is a public request. You have to get that information out. I don't care. That doesn't matter to me, but if you are new, right, or you just don't know, this information is a public record. And so I'm not interested in that part of it. I'm interested in what could be done, what could be better.
So what I would very quickly add is, first of all, for the public's information, should they be listening? The superintendent evaluation is an awkward transition for a lot of school committee members because everyone is used to a standard evaluation, which happens in a private room with 1 or 2 other attendees and is conversational, nobody's voting on it. And so it is a big, big transition to doing this in public. And so it is very common, to Dr. C's point, that we see someone puts in needs improvement, but there's no comment that clarifies exactly what needed improvement. So yes, I echo what you say. I would add that even in some of the proficient or exemplary ratings, there were some very specific comments about what work needed to be done in order to maintain that rating, whether it be, I know that there were a lot of efforts made for EL students this year. We were out of compliance, but we're not truly, please correct me if I'm wrong, we're not truly going to be in compliance until next year when all of our different moves are made. Is that correct? Or did we get there today? We made it into compliance by the end of the year, right?
Well, we are in compliance with service delivery. We just are submitting on Monday our finals.
Okay.
Continuous improvement plan for EL. So we are not necessarily out of compliance with our tier focus monitoring review from testing, but we are in compliance for service delivery.
So the comment sort of stands that we made tons of progress over this year. And we're closing out some really great efforts, and next year we'll have some of that. Special education has been a huge challenge that is impacting students. And so we do need to see consistency there, though it was further recognized that that is across the entire state of Massachusetts. It does not give us an excuse by any means, and yet it is I'm going to say a collaborative challenge faced by the state. I also heard, and this is a theme from a few years, is that district communication is great, but there's still a lot of work to be done for consistency across the schools, and even within a grade level. So
Yes.
so those were the big things I picked out. So we wanted to make sure those got specifically called out. If anyone heard anything else, please mention it. But I saw you writing some things down.
Well,
so.
no, because I think that what happens when the feedback is, maintained, is that the very things, they won't be as specific, but those items for improvement have made it, of course, into our next plan. So I think that's what my frustration is. So there is an issue that I did not address. I don't know what that issue is. So guess what? It didn't make it into the plan. I don't know what it is. So would it be fair to the superintendent to rate him again, it needs improvement, say in communication, when there has been no feedback. And so this sounds like I have sour grapes. I truly do not. This is important to me because I don't know what needs to be fixed. And so that can be frustrating for someone who may be new coming into a job like this, going, well, what do you want me to do? And I think that is, I think we could say that about any job. And so that's my only point to it. And I think that I really did appreciate we have to improve that, of course we did. And so, yeah, but that's all.
Yep. And so I would just close by saying that. So what has always been said to me, what I always say to my team. Is that if any of the feedback I give you was surprising, then I have failed. And so what I would say is what we really want this to be is that we're giving ongoing feedback throughout the year related to the district improvement plans. Whether that you schedule that one-on-one with Dr. C, whether you schedule that with me or Danielle, whether you bring that up in one of the subcommittees. So let's all just make that commitment going forward that we do need to raise any concerns as they come up. And with that, we already have a motion on the table. And so, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And I abstained, okay. And I say yes, so that is unanimous. All right, I am going to hand this over to Ms. Sukuchi. I'm going to let her in a natural way go through her 3 items, but for transparency, the 3 items she intended to speak about today was just general human instruction update with a specific focus on end of year data, as well as the district's strategic improvement plan, which we will need to vote on once she goes through that.
Thank you. End of year data update is just that tonight. It's a very brief update. Today was our official last hit of MCAS testing for biology. We have a couple makeups that we'll be doing over the next few days, but our staff and students are happy that is in the rearview mirror for our high school. That was a long process this year. Also, this week, we just finished up our end of year benchmark assessments for our primary grades using DIBELS for early literacy and then using STAR reading, STAR math. So I will bring those to the committee, that summary of the data report for that in at this point, it sounds like in July. And so we'll be unpacking that as an administrative team. Our teacher leaders have been working with grade level teams as they've been finishing. So while our window's still open, some folks had tested earlier. And so they're in the process of looking at that, assessing their impact and such. Next is our district strategic improvement plan. We sometimes call it our DSIP plan. So if you hear that acronym and you're not quite sure what that means, it's our district strategic improvement plan. And so the reason we are talking about this is our current plan is coming to an end. So we have been developing 3-year district strategic improvement plans. Our current plan was for 2022 through 2025, and you can see a summary of that here on the screen. Our big strategic objectives or our focus areas were on developing and strengthening a multi-tiered system of support for academics and for social emotional learning, to strengthen relationships and culture through communication and such. And the third bucket was really around systems and structures. And so this year, what we did is we've gone through a process that DESE, the Department of Education, puts out to support strategic planning for schools, and the process is called Planning for Success. And so there's really 3 stages that we go through to support developing our new 3-year strategic plan. And so the first is to analyze our current context and say, what have we done in relation to our previous strategic plan, and where are there strengths and opportunities essentially within our system. And so we did go through processes to review and celebrate progress that we've made in our current DSIP plan, and that has included updated reports periodically to the school committee on the things that we've done, and data as well. And then we looked for a lot of input in the process of sort of saying, okay, where are we currently with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? So there's a process called the SWOT analysis, which is, again, another acronym. And through that process, we looked at feedback from a wide range of stakeholders. And so while our administrative team spent a lot of time, our teacher leader team also gave a lot of input in that process. We pulled out and looked at community survey feedback, both from our previous communication survey and also from last year's Student Opportunity Act survey, where folks had prioritized focus areas for that plan as well. We also surveyed our school committee and got feedback from our school committee. And lastly, looked at student feedback through our vocal survey data, which is students giving feedback on school culture and their experience in the classroom and in their schools. So I say that to say we have a lot of data that went into that process, a lot of voices and a lot of kind of saying, okay, where are the common patterns or trends across our data points here? Then we did a process to use a protocol called Back to the Future, where we're really saying, okay, this is where we currently are. Where do we envision our school and our district down the road? What are the things we would like to see, 3 years or 5 years down the road? And then we backwards plan and say, okay, here's where we are now, here's where we'd like to go. What happened in the process in between? And then we use the information from both of those stages to create a plan based on our desired student outcomes. And so with all of that said, I want to give you just a snapshot of some of those data points included in relation to this year's plan, and then I want to share with you our summary of next year's plan. And so when we unpacked, all of those things, and we looked at, okay, right down to it, how did we do compared to the student outcomes we set in this year's strategic plan? I'm proud to announce to you that our first 2 goals were met. Which were really around, as you can see here, student behavior referrals, and we not only met that, we exceeded that. And we did talk a lot about why, and a lot of that we do think is due to the last couple of years revisiting behavior expectations with staff, but also revising our behavior matrix in our handbook to really have more of a roadmap for certain types of behaviors and how we respond to those. We've also gotten a lot more fluid with the use of our Swiss data system for tracking student behaviors as well. We also met our goal of a 5% increase for students at or above benchmark for reading and math on STAR as of our MOY data. So because we had not yet finished our benchmark window for end of year, we used our middle of the year. We tracked beginning of year, middle of year, end of year over the last 3 years up to MOI this year. So we were excited to say we've met that goal as well. We have not met our goal of narrowing the achievement gap for students with disabilities in ELA or math on MCAS. We actually have seen an increase in that gap over our 3-year span of our plan. We've seen an increase in that gap statewide as well, and I don't say that to say, hey, we're following the state trends, good for us. No, we know this is an area of need, and you'll hopefully see that reflected in our plan for this year. And then our last student outcome on our current plan was a 10% decrease in the number of students failing each quarter for middle school and high school. That is yellow because we partially met that goal. And what I mean by that is we have met that goal when we track that data for our high school. We have not met that goal in completion when we track that data for our middle school. However, what's fascinating looking at the trends with that data is that our high school has seen significant drops over 3 years. And in that year 1, they had implemented and developed a teacher assistance team or TAT team process. Our middle school started that process the next year. And you see a decline in that middle school data in that year that they implemented. So we are anticipating that we will see those trends continue, given that we now have some systems and structures in place to support and track students who may need some additional supports in whatever that may look like, whether that's academic, whether that's social, emotional, or attendance or whatnot. So we are seeing some evidence that some of the things that we put in place have been successful. Regarding that student outcome for students with disabilities, one of the things that we really looked at was not just what does our data show and what action steps have we taken, but also what obstacles have gotten in the way and what has prevented us from being able to see progress. It's noteworthy to just share that we have had a challenge, and I don't think at all this school year, we've been fully staffed in our special education department. So we have had, it's, for example, we have 2 positions that have been open all year in our middle school. We have had solutions to fill those, but in some cases, they're not filled with, full-time certified teaching staff. We've also had to go outside of our district and utilize, related service providers or contracted service providers, excuse me, who are not on staff with us, but they allow us to stay in compliance. So we've had some quirkiness with staffing in our special education department as well. So we do know there are some barriers that we are working through, and I hope you'll see those also reflected in our new plan. So with that in mind, we have drafted a new strategic plan for your consideration tonight. It would be a strategic plan for 2025 through 2028. That's just crazy to say 2028, right? And you'll see that our 3 big focus areas, and I hope you see a reflection of some of the feedback that was given in Dr. Castian's evaluation as well. You'll see that our 3 big objectives are around elevating academic growth and achievement for all students, supporting identified student groups, specifically students with disabilities and EL, which were named as our vulnerable populations and populations of need in Dr. Castian's evaluation, and continuing to strengthen our infrastructure for infrastructure operations and sustainability, which speaks to the budget concerns that were mentioned as well. Underneath each of these objectives, we've laid out 3 major initiatives for each, and you'll see there's a communication focused strategic initiative 1.3, which speaks to a lot of the consistency challenges that were brought up. And those are then further reflected in the copy that you all have that outlines our roadmap for school year 26. And so while tonight you'll vote on our objectives, our initiatives, and our student outcomes, I've also provided for you guys in your packet our roadmap, which outlines more specifically what are the action steps for each of those initiatives we have put in place and plan to go through for next school year. And so I want to just shine a light quickly on our student outcomes here. One of the things that you'll see in our student outcomes is you'll see some consistency with some of our academic related outcomes. You'll see an addition in bullet 2 that we are going to start also utilizing student growth as a measure, because in our previous plan, our measures were all focused on achievement. And sometimes there's significant growth that's made, but if students don't move an achievement level, it's not represented in the data point. And so we want to balance looking at growth and looking at achievement. We've also included or narrowing the gap with students with disabilities, utilizing both MCAS and our district benchmark assessments so that we're triangulating data and really looking at multiple data points when we're tracking these subgroups. And then lastly, we're going to continue to focus on failures at our middle school and high school. And you'll see that we removed a goal for decreasing student referrals because we feel confident that we are in a place where that feels sustainable for us and doesn't necessarily need to be a focus. And so with that said, I hope you've had a chance to look at the roadmap, and I don't plan to go over that in detail, but I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have. And I do hope that what you see reflected in these new initiatives, objectives, initiatives, and student outcomes represent the feedback that we just heard in Dr. Castian's evaluation as well.
So we'll get a motion on the table. I would entertain a motion to approve the 2025 to 2028 District Strategic Improvement Plan, the DSIP, as presented. So, second by Heather, second by Sean. Thanks, Sean. Any questions or comments about the DSIP that's been presented?
Ambitious.
Yeah,
like it.
I read it today, I was impressed, so
I love the roadmap. Somebody your new calendar.
good luck.
Seema.
I appreciate your work on this, especially continuing to focus on the achievement gap for students with disabilities in the life.
All right, excellent. Well, we look forward to hearing about progress as we move this forward. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, that was unanimous, and thank you for bearing with me as my brain momentarily forgot where I was in the motion.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. So new business, we did not end up with any surplus items. We continue to have a school committee vacancy in Phillipston, so if you know of anyone, send them our way, and we do now have our guidelines, our handbook for new school committee members, so please do feel like we can share that, and help make folks more aware of what is required of a school committee member, so that they have a good understanding of what they'd be walking into. So MASC annual conference, I have a little bit of a different message than I've had the past couple of years. So the conference is being held again this year. They have said that the dates will be November 12th to 14th, 2025. So last year, feedback on the conference, and this is not specific to our school committee, was that the conference was highly over political. Highly. And for those of us who attended, we all had some of the same reactions. Doesn't mean that there wasn't also some good content, but especially the group forums were charged. And so they have not yet released their agenda, which is also unusual. Usually by now, we have a good idea of what the agenda is, who the speakers are. And so what I'm gonna say is in this moment, I am sort of holding back on anyone who wishes to attend can certainly speak to me and Susan. I'm not going to prevent anyone from attending. It's a great networking event. What I am saying is that my recommendation to attend or to spend that time, take those days off from your day jobs, I'm holding back on that until I see the content. In previous years to that, I had a much more positive set of feedback on the content, the speakers, etc. I don't, things went weird last year. Thank you.
That's the nicest way to put that.
And I will say that that was the consistent feeling regardless of political affiliation, for various members who were attending, and we were hearing that from folks sitting around tables with us as well. So, we're hoping to see kind of them take a different tack, take a different approach, but more to come once that comes out.
I think the timing of last year's conference was very difficult.
Oh, it
It
was
was the
rough.
day after the election. There was some feeling is in.
Terrible day.
Yeah, so that
It was
added
very
Big feeling.
difficult.
Oh, yeah. So, there was a lot to unpack, as Ms. Superchi would say.
We'll dig into that later.
All right, so we did have an outstanding item from last time because I did forget this item on the agenda. And so, Mr. Case, Sean did agree to be our liaison, so to PTO. And as such, to make that official, I would entertain a motion to appoint Sean Case as the liaison to the NRSD PTO.
So, second.
Motion by Heather, second by Daniela. I'm so excited.
It was the.
Any questions or comments?
I have a second.
All in favor? Opposed, abstained, and I say yes, so thank you so much for that, Sean. And if you need to know who the current, you won't really need to work on this until the next school year, but if you need to know who that contact is, don't have it, Susan can correct you. We did already talk about Memorial Day, and so what I will do is hand this over to Dr. C. For any other items we may need to cover, though I do know that one of those items is student family handbook, but it looks like there are pictures being brought up. At least behind us.
So apparently, in this one school committee meeting in 9 years, and beforehand, all of a sudden, this that'll be the last time apparently that I'll have the way. So Memorial Day, oh gosh, right, so the rain almost ruined it. It didn't. Ultimately, we were able to hang in there. And I'll get to the kind of nuts and bolts of that, about all that in a bit, but, so. We have two programs. I think the elementary program is probably the more widely known, because it was close to 1,000 people out on our football field, including kids. But you know, we also have one at the middle high school in the gym, and it was absolutely fantastic. Mr. Steve Avenel, who MCs it, Jim Rio, who's, right, he probably, I don't know that I don't know that I've heard a more touching speech. What he did is he went through in great detail about the 5 young men whose flags fly in our foyer, don't fly, but pardon me, in the flag box, and he knew all of them while growing up, and it was very touching. And I'll tell you, you could hear a pin drop. 600 kids in that gym and whatever it was, and you could hear a pin drop. And telling about each of those, he knew them personally. It was unbelievably moving. You know, I want to thank the Honor Guard, all of the American Legion. They do a great job. They're always with us. 373 and Tom Salvador on the band. Again, I've already talked about how wonderful they are. See, this is why you went to a star show. Senior week was fantastic. It always is. It's the best week. I mean, it's busy, it's tiring, it's a lot of those things. I was actually a parent for all of it, which was neat. So, you know, my youngest graduated class in 2025, and I just got to say that they did such a great job at the athletic award, senior award banquet, scholarships, back to the room. We're all fantastic. I want to thank the congregation of church, pastors Stephanie Flynn. They were awesome, and you just keep moving. See, this is why you don't do the flag count. So I want to thank Stephanie for doing a great job. She really involves the kids, and it's really very interactive. It was fantastic. Again, I want to thank Mr. Young and the class advisors, Miss Lyons, Miss Smith, and everybody who made that happen. It almost rained. It almost rained. We made it though. And so
Sprinkles.
and we felt the sprinkles.
Rain,
And so
rain, only it's rain.
just really, honestly, it just listen, it'll be like it didn't good. So last night, we had, pardon me, sorry, Tammy Awards. We were up for a couple of awards, but we actually won Best House Experience. And as Ann Lyons will tell you, if we would not have won that award, it was going to be strong. Because our spies went to each one of our, to the folks around us, and there was no one close. In terms of the house, and by the way, in many other aspects, I think that we had probably the best set too, and I think you would agree with that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, this is a big deal. It was fantastic. Congratulations to all involved. It's fantastic.
And our own student rep also received an award.
Yes.
Yes, that's, I'm sorry,
Not your average cast.
not your average cast member, that's right.
Then we also have a middle school student nominated for Rising Star.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I need to realize them. Oh, that's right.
One, but he was not, he was represented.
Fantastic.
Joe Mangan.
That's awesome, that makes sense, okay. They were awesome.
Yeah.
We actually had a trying to offer in the house yesterday at TES. Paul Reynolds came to visit and, I'll tell you, he's a patient man. He is, no, he is, he's a wonderful man, I'll say that for the record. He sat there for 3 hours, till 9:20 and signed every possible book, paper, and talked to every student individually. Unbelievable. And so it was very well attended. It was, again, what a great guy. And just really was very personal when the kids, the kids just ate them up. It was fantastic. Field trips. I don't know that we have any children in school. I don't think we had any children. I think it's, where are they? I have no idea there. We're talking about Red Sox, actually it was the, the Woo Sox, thank you. We're down to today was the zoo. They're just everywhere, honestly, and, it's fantastic, and we've got, the ball trajectory, fourth up is at Polo Park, and then TES fourth graders in Lowell, water turbines, canal systems, weaving those machines. It is a busy time of the year. You haven't seen all, out of state. So there's a lot going on, which is great. Which is, exposing kids to the, just all the different things that actually are aligned with the curriculum, just for the record. Memorial Day, I'm gonna go back to Memorial.
So in a sense, there's some benefits. We're not going to be able to have the elementary all at the same time any longer. Parking, although we did our best, we cleared every possible spot that we could. The police chief received, the police department, police chief, I'm sure he did too, but the police department received many phone calls as parents. You know that you will literally park anywhere. You'll park in a person's house to watch your child sing for 2.5 minutes. And apparently that came pretty darn close because they were up on sidewalks, it wasn't good. So a lot of complaints, and we've had them kind of before, but not like this. We're gonna have to probably go to a split method, which we've done with the holiday concert. So K2, and then 3 and 4, or some iteration like that, to kind of have them up here inside the auditorium. It was bad. I had Steve Fliss, who was our SRO, one of them, and he was fantastic. He came out and was like, I don't know that I've seen it this bad. So I mean, it was just, again, it's not funny. It's not, because if someone's, your property is being parked on and, right up there, and people's driveways are partially blocked, people stop parking at stop signs, so people don't know that the car is actually not stopped, but it's parked. It was apparently a thing. So, so we're gonna have to make some plans, they're gonna be a little bit different. And that's not a bad thing, because we're still gonna celebrate like we do, but it's just gonna probably have to look a little different. Or just find, I don't know, field or, I don't know, it's a lot.
And I, just to bring it full circle to what we discussed during our last meeting, is I do know that this would also help us to address, should we have to move the event indoor, severe space to potentially do so, if we, split up the grades. So it is a long held tradition. Unfortunately, sometimes due to external factors, traditions have to adjust and change. And so there will be a lot of thought going into what that looks like for next year. Because I also got the debrief after the police came to talk to Dr. Sanders. So.
And they're great. And listen, I'm not just saying this, the police department are fantastic with us and they understand, but at some point it becomes a public safety too. And obviously the annoyance piece where that, so that's understandable. So, last and certainly not least, the MSBA, we've talked about the roof, and I sent out an email before, I think it was last week and the week before, times planned. But we're nearing the point where they're going to produce the report, feasibility report, which is basically going to say, this is what's wrong with your roof, or, this is where here are the issues. And so we're very close. They've done a lot of tests. They just finished the core tests on a lot of the sections of the roof, infrared, et cetera, et cetera. So we expect that, really almost any day. That report should be really in our hands in the week or two. So I give that as a kind of a heads up, just so, because I will communicate that out once I receive it. And then we're probably gonna have to meet with both towns during the summer, which we don't generally do, because it's a downtime, but not for the towns, to let them know what the conditions are for the roof, because as I put in the email, that there are some timeframes that are, I think I just maybe just I can't remember if I sent it to the whole committee or, okay. Anyway, I will check. I honestly, it
Don't
doesn't
place
matter.
me on the spot.
Yeah, no, sorry. I honestly just, but anyway, we've communicated that out. And some decisions are going to need to be made. And so the OPM will come and discuss the condition of what the report is, and we'll go from there. Early reviews is that there are some issues that need to be addressed. I mean, but they're not going to get into that until they actually.
I do remember you did send a note to the towns just reminding them of
Yes.
timelines, so you can copy me on that. You had also in your superintendent's report wanted to talk about some staffing moves as a reminder.
Thank you. Yep. So. Oh boy, I'm not even sure how to do this. I'm gonna try to honestly do this succinctly, because we've had a lot. This is reminding me of 2020, where we had a lot of moves prior to actually COVID happening. But so We. As I've sent out before, you know, Mary at the high school is moving on to another district to be the principal at the high school. Okay. In order to, so what we did is we took Michelle Landry, who is the assistant principal at the high school, who has many years of middle school experience, and she is going to be the principal, interim principal of the middle school. At the same time, we had an interim assistant principal at the elementary school, Casey Putnam. Because she was an interim, she couldn't factor into any decisions because again, she was just an interim. She wasn't, you know, a contracted, I'll call it contracted employee. So, what we're going to do is move Janet Smith, who has many years of experience at the elementary, as an interim down to the elementary as the assistant principal. So let me just stop for a second. Marcy Rasmussen, principal. Janet Smith, interim vice principal. Middle school.
Can we open this up and look at it in the next document, the handbook? And the reason that I'm asking for that is because the moves are detailed and because some of these ones that you're labeling as interim are not labeled as interim in this document.
Okay.
And so I think it would be
I
good.
didn't see that. I don't know where.
And I apologize for combining two different items now.
Yep.
Yep. But if we could review them in connection with this, if we need to add interim to any of these positions, we can make sure that note is taken down. We can have clarity and not have it then be questioned once we get to the next agenda item.
I'm looking at it now, so
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you wanna.
Hold on, I put that on
One second.
instead of.
Oh. I have it on.
I actually already made that update, it's just not in your draft, so I can pull that up right now and I will.
Oh.
Although I will double check throughout.
So I apologize for interrupting, but I could see people looking at it and starting to write things down, so I thought, why not?
You know how you're supposed to shut your computer down at the end of every day and not just close the screen so that it updates? Guilty.
You want me to just still hold until she reboots, or do you want me to?
We all have it open.
Okay,
So
okay, I
for-
wasn't sure.
for the public, bring it up for the public
Okay.
finish.
I just want to make sure that.
We can continue running
Okay.
through it
Yep.
and we can go.
So at the elementary school, Martha Rasmussen is the principal, Janet Smith is the interim assistant principal, which we will note. Middle school will be Michelle Landry, who will be interim, and Heidi Bavacqua would be the interim. We cut her, Heidi Bavacqua's position as the assistant PPS director. We cut that
Yeah.
position during the budget, process, and moved her to the middle school assistant principal, which she has experience in her former district. The high school, Colby Young principal, and Erin O'Day, interim assistant principal. So Erin O'Day, she is licensed, just in case, we're going to, just given the number of moves that have happened in a very short amount of time, she's going to remain in the NDA. And she's going to remain in the union, for this stint, and so she will assume all middle school, high school assistant principal duties with the exception asterisk of evaluations, but potentially if we get into a bind, we might, proceed to see if there are non-tenured first year teachers, just to help. Well, it's, yeah, you get one, principals do over 40. So in other words, it's a lot. I mean, we can, I have folks who do them all the time, so you understand. So those are when I say the biggest pieces that have moved this year. Or again, in the last, say, 2.5 months. That would be that. A lot of it was precipitated by the budget cuts, and so some things had to be, we're going to be moved around. Other things presented themselves as people moved on. Mary moving on, was, you know, she was, again, she's the consummate professional. She was letting me know through the entire process. That wasn't, on the bingo card necessarily, as we were kind of planning for all this, getting it back. But those things happen here. Although we've had an incredibly long run with the administrative staff, that we have, currently right now, honestly. This will only be my second second middle school principal. So that's, again, great scheme of things. It's fortunate, she's done a fantastic job. So those are the big moves that as of right now. We're hopeful that no more take place. We do have a couple of teacher resignations, but again, we'll kind of save that, because I'm not sure what.
We can review that in
We can
August
review
once
that in
things are
August.
sort of settled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So at this point, I don't think I'm missing anyone. I don't think I am, but I hope I'm not. So there it is. So we've gone to the bench, which is here. I talk a lot about capacity building. We are trying to always, train up and find folks from within. That is the smart move, period. It doesn't matter if you're a big district or a small district. And so, we're kind of stretched a little thin this time because we weren't expecting these many moves all at the same time, but there it is.
We did post internally for the interim.
Oh, sure, sorry. Yes, so we did post it.
Before we move into the student handbook, any questions or comments about moves? All right, that's really Dr. C's purview anyways, but anyone question the intern? All right, so we're moving into the student family handbook. We were not necessarily anticipating that we would get this done for this meeting, but very excited that legal came back in time to not only, to get this on the agenda within the appropriate time to meet open meeting law. So, what I will say is that we understand this was a limited time to review a lot of information, not just this, but a lot of the other, the DSIP, et cetera. And so if for some reason anyone's uncomfortable, we could push this. But that said, what I will add is there's a lot of benefit not to pushing it, because this gives the district a lot of time to get things up and running and things out there. And what I would additionally add is for this upcoming school year, the changes were far more limited in scope than they have in previous years when there were big changes to like dress code and discipline, et cetera. So with that, I'm not sure which one of you is speaking to it, Ms. Superchi. I will hand it over to you to give us a high level overview, and then
Sounds great.
we'll get a motion on the floor, and then if anyone has any questions or if they're concerned about voting on this at this time, we will certainly address that.
Sure. So I have no doubt in the last 48 hours, you've all read all 155 pages of this in detail. I'm just gonna highlight where the major changes were, and there were essentially 8 major changes. The first is that under our bullying section, we had added definitions to better be in alignment with Mass General Law, and we added retaliation prohibited. Those things were in our are in our bullying and prevention and prevention plan, and they just were missing from our handbook. So we updated our handbook to be in better compliance there. Second is that we did add language about search of students and property, which was absent and not detailed enough in our handbook previously. We added a civil rights complaint policy for our food service program. Interestingly, our attorney brought this to our attention, and he said, this is something I am recommending to just about every district I've been reviewing. Nobody's had it and should have for years. So we are adding that so that we are in compliance there. And at his recommendation, we put the Director of People Personnel Services as the contact for that. Our fourth major update is that we added, again, language that was absent in our handbook regarding educational opportunities for students in foster care. and educational opportunities for students of military families. Sixth major update is the addition of language in our, which actually is not major, this is really minor, but we added, after living our behavior matrices for a year, we added just very minimally some language that we realized really was missing in that. It is pretty minimal. And that was again at the recommendation of our district's attorney. And then we had added, you'll see a section added on public benefits for insurance to fund certain special education related services. So this is a requirement that we annually have to submit to families of students who receive special education services, and we have been. But we have been submitting it individually to families through letters. And so by putting it in our handbook, it allows us to just make sure that that information is out there and signed off on by families through our signature of our handbook. So it's just streamlining the process, and there's no reason all families shouldn't have access to this notification as well. So it's just an adjustment to practice for us. And then lastly, for major changes, you'll see under our high school section, update to the competency determination to align with our now new updated policy and program of studies. And then there are minor changes throughout, things like with our new contract, we have a new start and end time for middle school and high school, so we've adjusted bell schedules and that. And again, both are minor updates, but those are our major updates that you'll see in the handbook.
So before we put a vote on the table, is anyone concerned about voting on this right now and getting this business done?
No.
Okay, excellent. Assuming she's very. So I'm going to amend the motion, the suggested motion in here to include the edits related to the interim positions. So just be prepared that I'm gonna ad lib. So I would entertain a motion to approve the 2025 to 2026 student and family handbook. Including the edits to adjust the middle school admin positions to interim principal and interim assistant principal. And to adjust the Templeton Elementary School assistant principal to interim assistant principal.
Believe it's, so do you mind if I?
Yes, you may.
The interim roles would be the middle school principal role. And the high school assistant principal
Yep.
and middle school principal.
So the high school assistant principal is already correct in the document. So it's,
You said middle school assistant principal, not interim.
Yeah,
so that is not, okay.
no.
All right.
I was thinking a lot of interims because we have so many. So the fact is that that's her role, that's her role. Yes.
Okay, so I apologize, let me.
I might have said it.
And Madam Chair, also, in the past, when we've voted on the handbook, we've also given the district, the ability to adjust any positional changes that happen before the start of the school year. So we don't have to bring it back to committee if that's okay with you.
That is fine.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm only saying them now because of what's in front of us in this moment. So let me, all right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2025 to 2026 student and family handbook, including the ability for the district to continue making changes to positions throughout the school year as necessary, but for the purposes of initial publication, adjusting the labeling of the middle school principal to interim principal and the Templeton Elementary School assistant principal to
High school assistant principal.
okay.
The elementary principal.
He absolutely said interim
elementary
assistant
principal.
principal for elementary.
Right now, yeah, is.
Sorry, my bad.
Does anyone need me to repeat the motion? No.
We know what you're saying.
Motion by Shaw, second by Bill.
Molly just meant.
All right.
That's why,
It's all
the
good.
confusion,
I
the
am clear as mud over.
I think what I can say, Madam Chair, the confusion is this. There isn't, because of the way we have to structure, we should structure, not have to structure these things. Is, and again, it's a longer story, but Janet Smith has done yeoman's work for us in this district, and she of course was the first choice. She was the assistant principal for reasons that we're not going to go into here. They're not nefarious or anything. It's just that she felt best suited there at this point in time. So
with that, there'd be an opportunity, again, and you want to keep that as an interim because there could be an opportunity. She's still a contract employee, she's still employed by us, she will be employed by us. But I just want to make sure that, to explain it out a little bit further.
Right, and that's why I was trying to name the positions and
So,
not the.
and that's my error,
No, that's not.
that's my.
So the motion is on the table. Any questions or comments about the handbook in general? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, and I say yes. And you can tell we've all made it to the end of the school year.
Done.
All right, so there were no items not reasonably anticipated. School committee comments. Does anyone wish to make any comments this evening? Or has everyone
So-
commented out?
One comment about the TS morality program. I think we talked about it, but maybe in the last meeting, I don't know, I've lost track of when we actually met last, but the parking. So I was one of the lucky parents who got to park in the parking lot, one of the last people able to park, and it was craziness. Everyone was parked on the sidewalks, whatever, but I have to tell you, that means two things, that our families are showing up.
Oh, absolutely.
Second thing was that I was so impressed with how helpful and patient everybody was when it was time to figure out how to get out. There was no arguing, there was people helping each other, and so the message of the moment definitely carried over into the parking lots, and so despite the chaos, the exiting of the
It was great.
parking lot was handled very well.
That is entirely true. I experienced the same. Although I was not on time to get back.
I was the last person, and I was like,
I did not park in anyone's yard, just to be clear. All right, so running through subcommittees, although I'm not sure there's a whole lot here. Finance and facilities, we were supposed to have a meeting next week, but that actually has been canceled because there were no agenda items to close out the school year. District operations, we covered that thoroughly in our last meeting, and there is no meeting this month. Labor Management Committee, we covered that in our last meeting. There is no meeting with either of those two subcommittees this month. Liaison to CPAC just got started. I don't think there's any reports, so we will look forward to that in the next school year. And we literally just voted in our PTO liaison. Student Advisory Council is also getting started up next year, and so I would just point to our legislative representative to see if there was any.
we don't need to talk about it.
Excellent. Excellent. So the only thing I would draw your attention to is Susan, and I did have time, so if you go to school committee meeting dates, it references that our next meeting is Thursday, August 14th. But further to that, there is the FY 26 meeting schedule. There are two that I want to call to your attention because they are off schedule. Or several that are off schedule. The first is the August 14th meeting, which is the second Thursday instead of the first or the third. That was done deliberately because it gives us enough time before the beginning of the school year to make sure that we have immediate business done before the first day kids are in classes. Early August would have been too early, too many vacations, late August would have been too late. So then running through, we did make adjustments to February and April as per usual due to school vacation. So we just make sure that we don't have meetings during those weeks. But I will call out that we've already started to, put in bookmarks for possible multi-board meeting, etc. Then fast forward, we have to have 2 meetings in May because of reorganization of the committee, etc. And making sure everybody knows where they are, what their responsibilities are after voting. But then what I did do is, since we all sort of felt a bit rushed, and I thank everyone who did get their evaluation stuff in, because I know that was a world big turnaround. But for next time, I said, you know what? Really, we don't need 2 meetings in June. There's just not enough business. What we do need is time. So I made the executive chair decision that we were gonna do it June 11th. Because that's just gonna give everybody just that little bit more time to get work done, especially poor Anne Marie. And yet also make sure that we're not having a meeting after the close of school, immediately after the close of school. Nobody wants to come in for that one. I don't believe we need executive session this evening. Excellent. And therefore, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Sean, second by Frank. All in favor. Well, thank you, everyone.